Hi and welcome to Cooking with Alkali, where we cook things with alkali.
Also known as Jew in the oven. I did what?
We got in trouble for that. Oh, my sticker.
Go ahead.
Today we're going to be making a very famous recipe of mine. I used to make this all the time at Nero. This is the world famous pizza bread going one step farther. Now bear in mind, guys, the first step of this, what we're starting off with, you do not need to do. You can use store-bought bread and it'll work fantastic, and I'll tell you what to buy. But if you're willing, you can go that extra step and make the bread. So we're going to start off with however much this is 500 grams of bread flour. Now, guys, bread flour just means extra gluten. That's that stuff that everybody likes.
And
we're going to sift that into our mixing bowl, just directly in. I know for those of you out there who are gluten-free, there's enough gluten in this episode to kill you. You should probably turn it off right fucking now. And all we're doing is we're sifting this in. We're getting any big chunks out of the flour. That's one of the main things. Oh, I got flour in my coffee. Hold on, let me finish the coffee.
The camera's very loud doing zooms today. I'm not sure why.
It's really into Zoom.
That's crazy. Sorry if you guys can hear that.
No, they hear nothing. There is no audio. Everything in post, Sander. Everything in... Come on, that's your favorite, right?
Black and white with subtitles?
Yes.
Silent film alkali.
Silent film cooking with alkali. That would be an amazing episode. All right. And there we go. That is 500 grams of bread flour. And once again, you can use normal flour for this, but you're not going to get the amazing consistency when you are done with this recipe. Now, when this is totally done, when this bread comes out of the oven, the crust is going to be a solid, crunchy crust, but the inside is going to be that awesome, chewy, almost gooey-like texture. It's fucking amazing. Next, 10 grams of salt. I use kosher salt. You can use table salt. And 10 grams of yeast. Now, I am using the quick rise yeast. You don't need fresh yeast. No one needs fresh yeast. We have a wonderful thing called quick rise yeast where you don't need it stinks. Regular yeast stinks like that.
It stinks.
It stinks like ferrets.
That's right.
And finally, we're going to use 440 milliliters of water. Now, depending on how old you are, you're going to hear use warm water. I do not. If you use warm water, the bread is going to rise faster, and that's sometimes a good thing. But since I have time, that slow rise actually changes the flavor. I know because I accidentally did cold water once because I waited too long to make it, and I actually found it was a bit more of a flavorful bread. So I'm using cold water. What we're going to do is we're going to take about half of the water and pour it in. Now I'm leaving half of that water. Now this is a very wet dough. And notice I'm using the bread hook on here. If you use the paddle, if you use something like this, you're going to absolutely pulverize the bread. It's not going to create the gluten strands that you want. And if you use this, you're going to have a lot of cleaning to do, and it's going to be awful.
So you need a bread hook.
You need a bread hook. Now this bread style is called a ciabatta bread. So it's going to be a very, very wet bread. Notice I didn't put in any egg, I didn't put in any oil. The water and the bread flour are what's going to create that sticky, sticky mess. We're going to just let this go for a little while, start to mix in. It's going to make basically a paste, and once it gets to that point, we're going to put in the rest of this water. We're going to get you to that on the camera, and then after that, this is going to mix for about 15 minutes.
Ooh. So you're doing that for 15 minutes?
Once the rest of the water goes in, it'll go in for 15 minutes. Now, there's 3 stages to it. Right now, it's kind of a lumpy mess. Soon, it's going to go to a lumpy, sticky mess. Once it becomes a ball, which won't happen until we add the rest of the water. Once this mixture becomes a ball, that's when you know it's actually starting to mix. Now, some people would do this by hand, but because this bread needs so much gluten to build up, because it needs to be so gooey and stretchy in the middle, going by hand would take forever. You can do it by hand, all the power to you. I'm going to use a machine. So right now, come in here.
Technology.
Now that it looks dry, I'm going to start adding the water. See how dry that looks?
Sure.
Okay, now I add in the rest of the water. Now that's going to make this gooey mess of bread. So guys, we're going to come back to you once this is a bread ball, so stick around.
All right, we got about 5 minutes to go, and the mix is ham boning. It's ham boning.
It's not ham boning.
It's ham boning.
All right, we're back. So this is what you're waiting for. See how it's totally pulled away from the sides? It's one giant ball, and if I turn it off,
Yeah.
you can see what it's done. Now, it's still an ooey gooey mess, but that's what you're waiting on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to keep that going for a moment while we prep everything else. Now, I do not have a woodblock kitchen. I don't have a place that I can actually do bread or cut meat. I don't have any of that. The easiest way to solve that is with whatever counter space you have, you take parchment paper, put water underneath. I literally splash the countertop with water and then put the parchment paper down. That'll hold okay. Alexa, stop. And before we do this, because you're going to need it right away, you're going to prep your rising pan. Now this is a 3-liter square container, and you want it square. I'll explain why in a bit. You're going to take the olive oil. This is just extra virgin olive oil, and you're going to coat as much of this as you can. Now this is a sticky bread. So that's gonna hopefully stop this from sticking when it rises. You want it to rise up the sides of this thing. Okay. Now, take this. Now notice my hands are already covered in the oil. That's why I waited till right then to grease. Ah, come on. Everything's stuck.
Oh
The
no.
problem with doing this is now I'm down to one hand unless I want to make a mess. So I'm going to make a mess.
Yeah.
Now, all you're going to do, you're going to get this off the bottom, and it's going to go right into your mixing bowl. I'm sorry, not your mixing bowl, your rising bowl. Now, you're not going to get all of it because we did not, and you don't want to, treat the mixing bowl itself with the oil. If you get the oil in here, it's not going to rise properly. Now here's the consistency. You see that? How it's just rubberized like that? That's what you're looking for. You just want that. Now, we're going to leave that in there for about an hour at room temperature. When we come back, I'll tell you how long it took this to rise. But here's what you need to remember. You're rising this. So all you're going to do, you're going to put it in this bowl. You're going to forget about it for a little while. You are going to cover it. If you don't cover it, you'll get a film on the top of the dough that'll start to form. Okay, now that film will stop it from rising as quickly, which is the bad part, but also it does just leave a film on it. So you don't want that, it's not good bread. So here we go, here's our sealed container. We're gonna let this sit for probably about an hour, but I'm waiting for it to get close to the top. So once it gets there, we'll be back to you. See you guys soon. All right, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. So now we're gonna prep the prep area. Use the sifter. Flour down your area. Now this is, I always call it salmonella flour. It's semolina. Semolina flour, it's kind of like a cornmeal. We're gonna do the same thing, just kind of spread that around. Now the reason for the second type of flour, it's actually going to raise the bread slightly off of the cooking area. We don't want it touching the pan like too much. I guess that's the way to say it. All right, now. Oh, here is our bread. Remember how tiny that started? It was like a baby. I'm gonna abort it. So, do not go digging in here because we want these bubbles. We want everything formed. We want what made this whole thing. So we're gonna lose some of it, but all you're going to do is pour it out, almost like a liquid. Now it's gonna start to pull away from the sides, Once it pulls away, then you finish it off. Okay?
Whoa.
There we go. Okay? There's our bread. There's the start of it. Now, just by doing that, we're going to lose some of the bubbles, so we almost want to work fast. Now, we did that in a square container to get a square bread. I forgot a step. We're going to grab some more flour. We're going to flour our hands right over the bread because we want that. We want the flour on the bread. Okay? And some of the semolina as well. Okay. Now we're going to try to cut this into 4. Cutting this one is weird. You can't saw. You want to go straight through as close as you can down to your countertop. It is very, very difficult. And now that is going to be the top of your bread. So you're going to just use your hands a little bit. You know what? I wonder if I have the old... Nah, I lost that years ago. This'll work.
Okay.
Straight through. Straight through. Straight through. Now, once you have that cut made, I'm taking my parchment paper on any kind of a tray, throw on some of the semolina, throw on some of the flour. Okay, we're going to transfer that right away onto our floured and semolina blend. That cut that we made, that's the top. So you're going to just pull it away from the rest of the bread. I'm trying not to lose these bubbles, even though I am. Get underneath it. I have a little bit of stickage here. It's going to happen. Oh, I'm losing it.
So sticky.
It is incredibly sticky bread. Okay, and there's the first one. Second one. Now, once again, trying to handle the bread as little as physically possible. That's one of the tricks to this, because you do not want to lose that air that you created. We worked so hard to create that air. And there's number 2. They're going to be random sizes. They're going to be weird. Now, this is going to make a very flat bread. Notice I didn't put any eggs in. I didn't put any oil in. I'm trying to make a flat bread because we're going to turn this bread into pizza bread, and we want it to be flat on the tray after we cut it the second time. Okay, that one. Put it on, and the last one. Got a little bit of sticking. Oh, the sticking is going to kill it. That's one's. It's not ruined, guys. You're not going to be perfect. Okay, trying to handle. Okay, now I'm not going to touch it. I touched it a little bit too much. I had sticking. I would have loved to have done this on a actual proper breadboard or a wooden board to actually do this, but you can do this from your kitchen. It's actually not that hard to do. It makes a little bit of a mess, but the cleanup is all fairly easy to clean. Everything's on the parchment paper. Now we're going to let this rest for 20 minutes. We'll come back after 20 minutes with a preheated oven. Welcome back. We got the oven preheated. This has been resting for a little more than 20 minutes. I forgot to tell you, put paper towels on top or something like that. Just keep going. You'll see that this grew a little bit. Now the oven is set to 425. Notice I didn't put any egg on here. I didn't put any butter on here. That's because it doesn't need it, and it wouldn't stick anyway because of the amount of flour and salmonella that I have on the top. Semolina. Now one of the tricks to this is you want this to bake hot. So the oven's set to 425. We're going to get this in, and we don't want to lose a lot of heat. So already at the very bottom of the oven, I have a tray, just an empty tray that preheated with the oven, that we're going to pour hot water onto to create some steam in there. So once we're ready to go, we don't want the oven to be open very long. We're going to get this in. Top rack. And then we just take this water, and we're going to pour it. If I could hold it properly.
Wow.
Just to make some steam. Close the oven. Now that's going to go for 20 minutes. We'll see you guys in 20. Alright guys, welcome back. So while this is cooking, we're actually going to make the marinara sauce for the pizza. Now the marinara sauce is actually simple. I bought anything that said marinara on it. It doesn't fucking matter because we do our own spices. So find marinara. Now you do want to heat it up because basically what I did here is I put it into a pot, added a little bit of water, and we're going to use that water to steam it off to reduce it. Into that pot you add, I'm so sorry, oregano, Italian seasoning, and not a lot, just a of garlic salt. That's going to be your salt additive in there. Now it's going to make a very, almost a thick marinara is what you're going for. So you're just going to stir that in until everything gets incorporated, and you're going to let that heat up. The heat is going to open up the flavors. That's how you're going to make the sauce for your pizza bread. Okay, now, at this point, the bread has been in the oven for a little more than 20 minutes. So I think we were at about 23 minutes, 23, 24 minutes. What you're looking for, don't forget there's flour on there, so the flour lightens it up a bit. You want that golden brown. And that's what we got there. You should be able to knock on your bread. Okay? Once that's out, you gotta let it cool. If you cut into it now, you're gonna take that ooey, just awesomeness in the center, the chewy bread in the middle, you're gonna destroy it with the knife. Let that cool off for about 20 minutes. During that time, you prep your sauce, and that's all you really need to do. We're gonna come back, build these things, put them back in the oven for only a few minutes, and then you're gonna eat pizza on bread. See you in a minute. All right, we've let these cool now for about 10 minutes. That's cool enough. What you're gonna do is you're gonna split them in half with a bread knife. Any serrated knife will do, it doesn't matter. Don't push too hard because you'll end up crushing the bread. And when you get them, stand it up and cut straight down through it. Now, once again, this is a crusty bread, a nice hard crust, so it stands up very easily. And that's your inside right there. We're gonna make a bunch of these. Now, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of flour because that's how we stop this from sticking. It's how we cooked it, is with the flour. And also, don't squeeze too hard as you're holding it up. You're gonna, once again, crush the bread. It bounces back a bit, see? But just be careful with it. Love your bread, it'll love you back. Like, seriously, guys, it'll love you back. You can do things with this bread. You can do terrible things.
Don't do that with the bread.
Don't, you'll get a yeast infection. Don't listen to me.
That's true.
Once again, you guys can even see right here, if that happens at the bottom, just scrape some off. It's actually going to be fine because we're actually putting this back into the oven. But once again, that's what happens when you bake these things. Okay, and then once we get, oh, that one's cutting perfectly. Oh, that's going to be a good one.
There you go.
Okay, now as we're cutting, in the microwave, I have a stick of butter with a tablespoon of garlic salt if it was unsalted butter, garlic powder if it was salted butter. Depends on whatever you have in your house. Like, this is supposed to be done with shit in your house, so I'm going to put that on for 30 seconds. Remember, saw it like a lumberjack. I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
Sleep all night and work all day.
He was gay in that song.
Yes.
And remember, when you finally cut your finger, which you will do, go to the hospital. They know what they're doing there. Sometimes there's mice there. Dr. Mouse.
We have a mouse in the hospital. He runs things.
He brings people cheese.
That's right.
Okay. So now we have all of the bread cut. We have our melted butter. Kind of melted. Use a fork. Yeah, it didn't melt all the way, so we're gonna quick throw that back in. Well, that's okay. Okay. All this is right here is just we made, oh, that's melted enough. We made garlic butter. That's 1 tablespoon of garlic to the butter. Now, if you really want to do this right, you can do it in a pot. I don't care. All right. Now, that same tray that we baked the bread on, we're going right back onto that tray because I hate dishes. Now, okay, it's cooled off. Also, you shouldn't have a cluttered workspace. So whenever your workspace gets cluttered, finish your drink. It really helps.
It's not the rule.
That's the rule. All right, I'm going to show you guys how to make one of these. In the next scene, we'll have them out. So, you line your tray with all of your beautiful, beautiful bread. We have another tray for those that will come up. Okay. You've got your butter. Take your butter and very liberally brush it on there. Oh, butter the shit out of that bread.
Bernie that bread.
What?
So liberally.
I hate you so much. Okay, so I'm going to make just a few of them so you guys can see it. I'm going to make the rest off camera. And we will show you guys how this finishes. So here you go. This is how it starts off. You just get that bread nice and buttery. By the way, you should always make a few extras. You're going to end up eating one. Okay, then, before I showed you the sauce that we were making, that I just pulled off the stovetop. It's a nice thick marinara. Grab a spoon and literally just lay it on top. Okay? You're going to flatten it out a little. You don't need to flatten it out much. You just want that on top of your bread. Don't really rub it in there because once again you've got the butter and this bread is going to absorb the butter. It's not going to absorb the sauce or anything like that. It's going to absorb the smallest bit of sauce. It's mainly going to get that beautiful garlic butter flavor. All right, so that's a good start. If you're not using the oven, turn it off so you don't burn down your fucking house. Grab the Parmesan. Just a wee bit of Parmesan. Once again, you're helping with that salt factor. And then finally, I use mozzarella. Use whatever the hell you want, but not dick cheese. Don't use dick cheese.
Well, if it's Valentine's Day.
If it's Valentine's Day, use a lot of dick cheese, but you got to go heavy on the dick cheese then.
Okay.
Okay. Now, once again, we're just getting, this is a balanced taste. If you live with, like let's say Miko, you can put an entire bag of this on one piece of bread. But since Miko's not in this episode, we're going to do a non-mouse size serving. Just put the right amount of cheese on here. Though, by the way, I guarantee you, by the time I am done, that's my phone. I'm professional. All right, guys, that's it. This is going back in the oven at 350 for 7 minutes. Check them. Probably pull them out at that point. We'll see you guys in a bit. There you have it. 3 hours into the day, and we finally have pizza bread. I recommend making a lot at once, an unreasonable amount, and then people will cancel on you, and then you get pizza bread. Remember, the bread can be used for other things. Guys, I'm Alkali. I think our cameraman Xander.
Hi.
And Miko ate the rest of the cheese in the house.
That was payment.
Good night, everyone.
Night.